Good afternoon and welcome to the declaration of results for the Boroondara City Council elections. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land we're meeting on today and pay respects to their elders past and present and any other Aboriginal people here today. My name is Jenny Colgan and I, as the election manager of the Boroondara City Council elections, it is my duty today to declare the results of the elections held on the 26th of October this year. The results for each ward will be read in alphabetical order of ward name. So we'll start with Bellevue Ward. There were 5 candidates standing for election. A manual count was conducted to determine the candidate elected for the 1 vacancy for Bellevue Ward. Following the count of first preference votes, no candidate had achieved an absolute majority, that is, more than 50% of the first preference votes. Therefore, a preference distribution was required. After the distribution of preferences, candidate Michael Nolan achieved an absolute majority of votes. So I hereby declare Michael Nolan as elected councillor for Bellevue Ward. Michael.
Hello, yes. I'd like to start by acknowledging the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, traditional custodians of this land, and acknowledge any elders past and present, and pay my respects. I'd also like to acknowledge the work put in by my fellow candidates in Bellevue. I thought it was an honest and respectful campaign, and that's very important in my view. I'd also like to thank the previous councillors for their work and time they've given over the past 4 years. And a lot of that, somebody was just talking about COVID this time 4 years ago, so some difficult times with that. Thanks to all the residents of Q East, or East Q, and North Balwyn, and that includes Bellevue and Greythorn and the north of North Balwyn. Congratulations to the other 10 elected councillors. I really look forward to working with you and with all the council officers and staff. Thanks to my amazing supporters and campaigners who helped me over the last few months. One of my campaigners said it takes a village to elect a community independent, and I think that's a good thing. Special thanks to my own family and my extended family and all the supporters. And I particularly want to thank Rosemary, my partner, for being supportive. She'll be along later tonight, for being supportive, enthusiastic and tolerant at times, as required. During the campaign, we knocked on thousands of doors and had thousands of conversations with residents and community and traders. People are overwhelmingly in Bellevue looking for a fresh focus and a representative who will absolutely prioritise community concerns and desires. People want more responsible spending and they want greater transparency and improved communication. Community really wants QREC to be open for business. Community wants the decision to demolish and rebuild Q Library to be revisited. Residents want rates to be kept lower. Households want practical climate action and for council to support more initiatives to make action on climate easier and more economic for everyone. Over these months, I've heard that people living near North East Link do want council to be a strong advocate for them and work with them to have a stronger voice. People are already being impacted quite seriously. We need so many local issues addressed. For example, Bellevue needs public toilets and amenities in Hyde Park, in East Q and in Lee Park in North Balwyn. They want to look at amenities for teenagers such as half-court basketball, a mountain bike track or a skateboard park, popularised now by the recent Olympics. We want to be looking at those things. Parents and older people want traffic and safety hotspots in Harp Road looked at with advocacy to Vic Roads as appropriate. And there are other hotspots in Bellevue, and some of those are adjacent to other wards, I do realise. Residents in North Balwyn are keen to see a public transport review, largely buses, and for council to advocate for this strongly. People overwhelmingly want transparency and communication of what council is considering in terms of new projects, and then on the progress of approved projects. In being the Bellevue representative, my first priority will always be to engage with and listen to community. This is my commitment, and I take this responsibility with great seriousness. And again, I respectfully thank the Bellevue constituents. And I look forward to working with such a high calibre group of elected councillors and working with council staff to bring the best results for the community of Burundara and for Bellevue Ward. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. So in Cotham Ward, there were 2 candidates standing for election, and a manual count was conducted to determine the candidate elected to the 1 vacancy for Cotham Ward. Following the count of first preference votes, candidate Felicity Sinfield achieved an absolute majority, that is more than 50% of first preference votes. I hereby declare Felicity Sinfield as the elected councillor for Cotham Ward, and I now call on Felicity to address this meeting.
Thank you, Jenny, and good afternoon, everyone. Thanks. I didn't think I was that much taller than you, Jenny. I'd like to start by acknowledging Jenny and her team at the VEC. What a mountain of work you've had to do in a very short time, and none of us would be here today if it wasn't for your efforts and that of your team, so thank you. I have a very few brief thank yous and acknowledgements to make, and I didn't prepare a speech. It's not quite like your maiden speech in Parliament, but a couple of thank yous nonetheless. First of all, to the community in Cotham Ward. I obviously wouldn't be here without them, and I take my 4-yearly performance review very seriously. And I'm pleased to be returned with a primary vote of about 64%. I'd also like to thank my family, my 3 little kids. We say that the politicians or the elected representatives are the volunteers and the family are the conscripts. Well, that's pretty true, and my little kids have done a lot of letterboxing, as too my husband and the rest of my extended family. My very small campaign team, friends, family, colleagues, it's not easy to letterbox the thousands of letterboxes that we do and pound the pavements without a team of support. I'd like to pay tribute to my councillor colleagues who have gone before us. The last 4 years, the last 8 years has been such a pleasure to serve with them, and I've learnt so much from them. Their generosity of time, skill and expertise is second to none. I still have much to learn after 8 years, and I'm very willing to do so. And finally, I think a thank you to our council officers. Without you, none of our dreams and aspirations can come to fruition. And it's a message for all of the new councillors who will be sworn in tonight. Be kind, be gentle, and be respectful of our council officers, because we really do rely so heavily upon them, and they do such an exceptional job. So thank you.
The next ward is Garden Ward, and for Garden Ward there were 3 candidates standing for election. Again, a manual count was conducted to determine the candidate elected for 1 vacancy for the Garden Ward. Following the count of first preference votes, candidate Victor Franco achieved an absolute majority, that is more than 50% of the first preference votes. I hereby declare Victor Franco as elected councillor for Garden Ward. Thank you, Victor.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Jenny. Thank you, everybody, for being here today. I'm just going to say a couple of quick words, quick thank yous. I'd like to thank all my fellow residents who encouraged me to stand again for re-election and those who supported my campaign. You went out of your way to help me, and I'm profoundly grateful, and I'll do my best to live up to your expectations. As an independent, it's impossible to succeed and achieve an outcome like this without your help. I'd like to acknowledge my family, my 2 children, Pascal and Joachim, my partner Katura, and my mother Candida, for their understanding and encouragement. And I know I'm going to need it for another 4 years. So thank you to each of you. And finally, to my 7 new colleagues and to my 3 former colleagues who've been re-elected, congratulations. I'm very much looking forward to the next 4 years. It's a time of optimism and opportunity. I look forward to us working together collaboratively and constructively to achieving the best outcomes for our residents and ratepayers, making Boroondara Council the best run council there is, and Boroondara the best place to live, something we're proud of. So thank you and congratulations. Bye-bye.
This is one disadvantage of being short. In the Glenferrie ward, there were 3 candidates standing for election. Again, a manual count was conducted to determine the candidate elected to the 1 vacancy for the Glenferrie ward. Following the count of first preference votes, candidate Wes Galt achieved an absolute majority, that is more than 50% of the first preference votes. I hereby declare Wes Galt as the elected councillor for Glenferrie ward, and I now call on Wes to address the meeting.
That's fine. Thank you, Jenny. I too would like to take this opportunity to say a few thanks. First of all, I'd like to thank the electors for putting your trust in me for a second term. I think I worked hard to deliver on my last promises, but I was guided throughout by thousands of emails, meetings on street corners and things like that to enable me to tweak what I delivered. And it's also helped me shape what I'm looking at going forward. So I'm happy for all the support I've had over the years and during this campaign. It's just been fantastic. I also would like to, I guess that you have to get a measure of, have you done the right thing? Have you succeeded? And again, I'm using my primary vote. It's increased dramatically from what I had from 2020, and I'm humbled by that, absolutely humbled by that. So, but I came back to stand again because I think we got a huge amount done during the previous 4 years, just a great amount with the assistance of the staff and my colleagues on council, etc. But there's a lot more to be done. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but I dearly would like to see some more advancement on climate. We now have the issue of desperate need for housing in the area, balanced against protection of heritage. Shopping strips, we've talked long and hard, we have plans, but they haven't gone very far yet, and we need to advance fairly promptly on that. I'd like to see the tuck stand finished. It's well underway, but it ain't finished yet. And dare I mention QREC, there'll be a lot of people mentioning it today. We've got to get that done and underway quickly now. And the libraries. We've got to think sensibly about how we approach those. I take this opportunity to thank my wife, Jane. We do have a long bucket list we'd like to get through. We did start at PC, that's pre-COVID or pre-council, and there's an awful lot more we'd like to do, but and a lot more things I need to do around home. But Jane's recognised the passion I had, primarily for doing something about climate, and all the other passions I've adopted over the past 4 years and moving forward. Thank you for being so patient and tolerant. And thanks also to my support team throughout this campaign. It's been a long, arduous one. I think COVID was a blessing in some ways. It wasn't nearly as difficult. To Les Pratt, thank you for those early mornings, cold mornings at the station, standing at the front of Coles in Glenferrie Road, and for you having to needle me into using social media. My apologies for all the difficulties. I noticed Josh here today, and I'm glad I understood you worked to 3 o'clock one morning delivering your videos. I'm sorry about the leading man. He was a bit of a shocker, but we got there in the end. And I'm glad you didn't lose your drone to that flock of crows over QREC. Very ominous. And lots of other people that helped me through the campaign. It was fantastic. I'd also like to thank my fellow councillors. We didn't always agree. We certainly didn't always agree, and sometimes we were diametrically opposed. But when the topics were right, we worked together and we achieved a lot. And regardless of what side of a fence we stood on issues, I enjoyed your camaraderie. It was great and very supportive. And I'd also like to thank the officers. Sometimes we're difficult to put up with, but you've done a great job. And when we need assistance putting things forward, you've been right behind us. It's just been terrific. So to Phil, Scott, Daniel, Kate, Brian, and lots of others in their teams, thank you. And we were hoping for a very progressive council this time around. I think we've got one. And I'm, for one, absolutely looking forward to it. So I'd like to finish with wishing the officers a lot of good luck. Thank you.
Moving on to Junction Ward, where there were 2 candidates standing for election. A manual count was conducted to determine the candidate elected to the 1 vacancy for Junction Ward. And following the count of first preference votes, candidate Mel Osborne-Smith achieved an absolute majority, that is 50% of the first preference votes. So I hereby declare Mel Osborne-Smith as elected councillor for Junction Ward and call on Mel to address the meeting.
Thank you very much, Jenny, and the electoral team who've worked tirelessly over the last few weeks to bring this result to a very professional and thorough conclusion. It is my absolute honour to be elected as the next Junction Ward councillor for the City of Boroondara. I would like to say here today that I take this role very seriously. I'm committing here today to discharge my responsibilities of a councillor respectfully and professionally. I commit to consulting widely, both with my fellow councillors, with council staff, and with the public at large. And I commit to advocating with real passion for improvements to the junction, many of which I've learnt during the election campaign and many of which I've harboured in my mind for some years. And I bring those wish lists to council with great passion and excitement and optimism in the hope that together with my fellow councillors, we may be able to achieve some real change, not just in the junction, but right across the broader city of Boroondara. And finally, I'd like to say a few thank yous. I'd like to thank the past councillors who have served this city with honour and faith for many years at times, and have aimed to discharge their responsibilities in a professional and considered way. In particular, Di Gillies, the previous past councillor for Junction Ward. I would like to thank the incumbent councillors who have given me encouragement and wisdom to my new chapter in my life as a councillor for Boroondara. I would like to thank my family and friends for their support during the election campaign. And finally, I would like to thank the people of Junction Ward who have trusted me with this great honour to represent them in the City of Boroondara for the next term of this council. Thank you very much.
In Linden Ward, there were 3 candidates standing for election, and a manual count was conducted to determine the candidate elected to the 1 vacancy for Linden Ward. Following the count of first preference votes, candidate Lisa Hollingsworth achieved an absolute majority, that is 50% of the first preference votes. I hereby declare Lisa Hollingsworth as elected councillor for Linden Ward. And I now call on Lisa to address the meeting.
Thank you. Thank you, Jenny. And as Councillor Sinfield said, without your support, going through the VEC process would not have been as easy, and we're very grateful for you and your team, and thank you for all your efforts. First and foremost, it is with utmost gratitude that I thank the Linden Ward community for their support and overwhelming vote of confidence to re-elect me as their local government representative for this council term. I reaffirm my assurance that I am committed to continue to improve, protect and deliver what is important to you, to our community. A proud community that is rich with a great diversity of culture, of language, of professional attributes and of compassionate people that give back to the community through very active volunteerism. Our community has a very strong desire to have their say, or through Boroondara's website channels and other forms of communication, have your say on matters that are important to you, your family, your aspirations, to build a sustainable and vibrant future for Boroondara. And through continuous community consultation engagement, I do listen and I hear your voice, and I just wanted to let you know that your words are very important to me. I am humbled to be taking the oath of office later this evening on this date, on the 11th of November, Remembrance Day. It is a day for all of us that we will not forget. It is a privilege to be here as elected representatives. I am delighted to be joining 10 other elected councillor colleagues for this 24 to 28 council term. And I look very much to forming a collegiate and collaborative working relationship as I and we together will commit to faithfully and impartially carry out and exercise the functions, powers and authorities and discretions vested upon us, representing the best interests of the Boroondara community. And it is with the utmost respect I acknowledge the non-returning councillors that I've had the privilege to serve with through the past council terms, and I thank them for their long-lasting legacy of infrastructure project renewals, of policies and programs and other matters of business that they have helped work with council to deliver during their tenure. From today onwards, we as the new council, with the guidance of our highly experienced CEO, Mr. Philip Storer, and directors, managers and lead council officers, will continue to prioritise the pressing needs and the most important challenges local government must address as we endeavour to re-establish respectful relations with our state and federal members and navigate, in my opinion, what is the most significant proposed changes to Burundara's planning framework, as we are confronted with an unprecedented magnitude of state government proposed planning reforms in Burundara's history. Now, progress is inevitable, growth in population is wonderful. We have a great diversity of community, as I said before, and we do need to address these pressing issues, and I hope that we together can do that in a collaborative way. Thank you.
So thank you, Lisa. So moving on to the mailing ward, where there were 4 candidates standing for election. A manual count was conducted to determine the candidate elected to the 1 vacancy for mailing ward. Following the count of first preference votes, no candidate had achieved an absolute majority, that is more than 50% of the first preference votes. Therefore, a preference distribution was required. After the distribution of preferences, candidate Shima Ibuki achieved an absolute majority of votes. I thereby declare Shima Ibuki as elected councillor for Marling Ward. And I now call on Shima to address this meeting.
Thank you very much, Jenny. I think we're the same height, so we don't have to adjust this microphone. And thank you very much for your team and for your advice and guiding us through the electoral process, especially for our newbies. I'd like to acknowledge that we're gathered here today on lands of the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung people, and I pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Congratulations to other councillors in the room today. I'm very excited to be working collaboratively and positively with you over the next 4 years. Now, I know that we're not going to see eye to eye at all times, but I hope that we'll be able to debate our differences with civility and mutual respect. I'm very much looking forward to working with you. I'd like to also pay tribute to Jane Addis, the incumbent, who fulfilled 12 years of service to the community of Marling Ward. She's left very big shoes for me to fill. Likewise, I had some very tough candidates to compete against, hence the final count. And I would like to congratulate them on their campaigning. That was Anthony Nichols and Sam One. I'm sure that in their way they are going to continue to contribute to their community. I have to give heartfelt thanks to my volunteer team. They absolutely were the dream team, and they know who they are. It was such a journey. There were highs and there were lows. They gave me time, they gave me effort, they gave me counsel, and when I needed it, they gave me humour. Thank you so much. If you could call this a victory, then this victory is as much yours as it is mine. I also need to thank my family. My husband Simon was by my side the whole way. I think that he probably put up half the 76 call flutes that we had around Marling. My children too, Hanako, Ethan and Raina, were by my side. It was a family affair, and I'm so proud that it made us stronger in the end. They have my eternal thanks. To the people of Marling Ward and broadly across to Burundara, I am so honoured to be given the honour of serving you over the next 4 years. I have listened to so many of you across Burundara, and I cherish every moment, every conversation that I have had with you. You have given me so many ideas. You have given me a real sense of the values and the progress that you want me to fulfil at council, and I take this honour and the trust that you have in me very seriously. To the CEO, Philip Storer, his executive team, council officers and staff, I really hope that over the next 4 years you will see me more as a help than a hindrance. I'm really looking forward to learning in greater detail what you do and how I can positively impact that work. You already do a fantastic job, but as I see it, my role as councillor will be to provide, hopefully, some strategic direction and some assistance to you so that we can continue to improve, continue to adapt, and also more closely align with the values and what the people of Boroondara want. So again, thank you very much for the honour. I'm so looking forward to being councillor for Mowling Ward over the next 4 years. I approach this with great dedication. I will continue to be a very active councillor, and I'm looking forward with my fellow councillors to achieving great things. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheema. Now, in Maranoa Ward, there were 4 candidates standing for election. A manual count was conducted to determine the candidate elected to the 1 vacancy for Maranoa Ward. Following the count of first preference votes, no candidate had achieved an absolute majority, that is 50% of the first preference votes. Therefore, a preference distribution was required. After the distribution of preferences, candidate Chris Pattis had achieved an absolute majority of votes. I hereby declare Chris Pattis as the elected councillor for Maranoa Ward, and I call on Chris to address this meeting.
Thank you, Jenny. I'm a little bit taller, not too much. Good afternoon, everyone. Fellow councillors, council officers, people of the great city of Boroondara. Fellow councillors, we're about to go on a 4-year journey together, and something that I believe is going to be a magnificent journey as a wonderful team in a very privileged position for this city. So I'd like to be excused if I share with you my personal journey in terms of how I got here, because it's probably going to be the only time I'm going to talk about myself, because after today, it's all about we rather than I. But the personal journey will explain a lot about my motivation. 33 years ago, my wife Kathy and I decided to buy a home and to live in the beautiful and green Balwyn North. 3 years later, that's 30 years ago, the state government was amalgamating councils and the city of Boroondara was created. At this time, having a passion to improve things in my local community, I decided to run for council, and I was successful in the new amalgamated council. There were 3-year terms in those days, and I was successfully re-elected another 2 times. I'm very proud of that. I also put my hand up for mayor, and that experience became one of the most satisfying and enjoyable of my life. And some of you may have noticed the photos still out there when I was mayor, with a lot more hair than I have at the moment. So it's quite satisfying to see that, and very proud. I left council on my own terms, satisfied I had achieved a lot in nearly 10 years to continue with my 30-year full-time career as a senior executive with several technology companies. I also had the honour of becoming a board of director with several government and private companies over the last 20 years. Now, 20 years after leaving council, I decided to run again as a councillor for a variety of reasons, and I was successful. Thank you, Maranoa Ward people, for entrusting me again after all this time with this responsibility. And if I can remind my fellow councillors, even though we were elected by some of the people in our city, we represent all of the people in our city. And one of the things that I'm very aware of is that I will be representing those people who voted for me, but also those people who didn't vote for me. And that's very, very important for us as councillors all to remember, and I hope you'll remember to remind me too if I ever stray. So now, much more experienced and wiser, I want to help make our city even better for us all and for our children and their children. Thank you to my family for their help with my campaigning and the constant debating on strategy. Especially thank you to my wife, Kathy, who put up with the many ideas and initiatives I was coming up with. I look forward very excitedly to working with my new colleagues over the next 4 years and beyond to continue to make our community healthier, happier, and more successful, achieving our life dreams and our ambitions. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Now moving on to Riversdale Ward, there were 3 candidates standing for election. A manual count was conducted to determine the candidate elected for the 1 vacancy for Riversdale Ward. And following the count of first preference votes, no candidate had achieved an absolute majority, that is more than 50% of the first preference votes. Therefore, a preference distribution was required. And after the distribution of preferences, candidate Rob Ballew was achieved an absolute majority of votes. I hereby declare Rob Ballew as the elected councillor for Riversdale Ward.
I promise I'm not standing on my tiptoes. I don't think we've ever seen a council election this engaged before. This is a real interest in the community in getting involved, and that bodes really well for our democracy. And I want to thank the VEC for their independence and their professionalism. You've done a great job. I especially want to thank the volunteer family that's here with me today. You letterboxed, you flyed, you door knocked, you listened to my crazy stories and ideas, and you coaxed the best out of me, and I'm incredibly grateful for that. Especially my LGBT volunteers. My campaign started with queer people showing solidarity, even to the extent that they didn't necessarily agree with all my views. They wanted to support another queer person in making a difference. I want to thank Susan Bigger, the retiring councillor for Riversdale. I actually ran against Susan in 2020 and I made the mistake of calling her. At the end of the phone call, I put the phone down and I said, gee, she's good, I wish I could vote for her. It'll be big shoes to fill, and I hope to consult with her for the enduring future. I want to thank someone here today, Aaron Smith. He's the Vice President of Voices of Kooyong. For those who don't know, Voices of Kooyong, it formed in 2020 post the council elections with a focus on how we can do politics better at all levels of government. And I think it's done a great job inspiring people to get involved and make a difference for the first time in their democracy. And I think we've seen the results of that today. Thank you as well to the community groups that have enabled this election to be conducted as it has been. People have been active in this community for a very long time. Kooyong Climate Change Alliance, Lighter Footprints, Reconciliation Burundara Correction, and many other groups. You've done a great job advocating for your communities and your causes, and that's reflected in these results. Hopefully this council will live up to your ambitions for us and will set a culture of collaboration, positivity and collegiality that'll carry in, not just for this term, but for many terms to come. It's pretty clear to me that this election has given the council a real mandate for action on climate change, not just education and advocacy, but real intervention to acknowledge the hidden poverty in our community and support people who can't afford to transition in transitioning to renewables, solar, batteries, and EV charging. I'm proud to have door knocked half of my ward and about 100 doors in every single ward across the Burundara area during this campaign. And I promise I'll never stop door knocking so I can get a good sense of what people actually want and I don't live in the bubble. I'm also proud to be the first Gen Z councillor, and it weighs on me that my decisions and my actions on this council, I have to live with those consequences, far more so than anyone else. The future I'm building here is as much my own as it is my peers, and I take that very seriously. We have to get things right, and I promise to do my part to take this job seriously and make a difference for our community. So, thank you.
In Solway Ward, there were 5 candidates standing for election. A manual count was conducted to determine the candidate elected into the 1 vacancy for Solway Ward. And following the count of first preference votes, no candidate had achieved an absolute majority, that is more than 50% of the first preference votes. Therefore, a preference distribution was required. After the distribution of preferences, candidate John Friend Pereira achieved an absolute majority of votes, and I hereby declare John Friend Pereira as elected councillor for Solway Ward.
Thank you, Jenny, and the team from the VEC. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we're meeting on the land of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. I'm very grateful for the incredible support from our community. This is not my win, this is a win for everyone who believes in the strength of community and a Burundara that listens, acts, and grows together. A heartfelt thank you to every volunteer and supporter who poured their time, energy, and passions into this election. These results belong to all of you, and I'm inspired by you to represent you and to stand beside you as we go forward in the next 4 years. A particular thank you to my wife and 2 young children for tolerating the demands of a long campaign and for backing me to take this on, and again for that commitment to the next 4 years. I want to acknowledge my fellow candidates. It takes courage to stand for election at any level, and their campaigns were an invaluable part of that democratic process and illustrated in the high turnout in Solway Ward. Our work is just beginning. A councillor's role is to create an environment where the community can unite to achieve real results. We are facing significant challenges, from climate action to housing needs, but there are also exciting opportunities for positive change. They say nothing worth doing can be done alone, and no single councillor has all the answers. I look forward to collaborating with open-minded colleagues, both councillors and officers, and the community, drawing on their experience, expertise, and passions to advance our shared priorities on behalf of our community. With continued community support, we can achieve great things. Let's get to work. Thank you.
Thank you, John. So now we come to Studley Ward, where there were 4 candidates standing for election. A manual count was conducted to determine the candidates elected to the 1 vacancy for Studley Ward. Did I say Stanley? Studley. I do apologise. For Studley Ward. Following the count of the first preference vote, no candidate had achieved an absolute majority, that is more than 50% of the first preference votes. Therefore, a preference distribution was required. After the distribution of preferences, candidate Sophie Tawney achieved an absolute majority of votes. I hereby declare Sophie Tawney as elected councillor for Studley Ward. Well standing.
Thank you. Thank you, Jenny. As everybody has said, amazing work by Jenny and the VEC. This is incredible. Sorry, lucky last. Thank you all for waiting. Before I start, I'd really like to acknowledge the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation and thank them for caring for country since time immemorial. That always makes me emotional saying that. So good afternoon, everyone. I am really honoured to stand here and I'm very grateful for the trust you have placed in me. Thank you to the people of Studley for putting your trust in me, and I'd like to acknowledge the councillor Nick Stavrou for his 4 years of service. Thank you to all my amazing volunteers and supporters and for putting your trust in this campaign and putting your time and effort into making it work. This truly was a community-led effort, and I couldn't have done it without you, so thank you. Throughout this journey, I have met so many of you in Studley and in other wards, and I've been listening to your concerns and hearing what matters most. And I am committed to working hard to addressing those priorities. They are really important to all of us. And to keeping communication open and transparent, and to ensuring that your voice is always heard. So the Boroondara community has voted decisively for renewal. While roads, rates and rubbish are important, you've told us that climate, accountability and transparency are also important. I'm really excited to work with this amazing team of councillors and council staff. I'm excited because, as you've heard today, there are so many good people here in this team. Everyone has strengths and experiences and a shared commitment to this community. I'm really excited to be working on a council that's both reactive and forward-thinking and cohesive and collaborative. And I want to emphasise something that I've shared a lot on this campaign, that while I've been elected, or while I was hoping to be elected to represent Studley, I will be a councillor for all of Boroondara. And that's because your voice matters, and I'm committed to making sure that your voice is at the centre of our work. I would like to thank my very patient, kind and supportive family. My husband Tony, who many of you know has been campaigning hard for 2 years, my beautiful children Izzy, George and Florrie, and my mum Sue, who has been an incredible support. I step into this role with a calm determination and a clear focus, and I can't wait to get started. Thank you.
So this concludes the declaration of the Boroondara City Council elections. And the results of the elections are available on the VEC website, and they're also on display on the election office window, Chamley House in 405 Camwell Road. Thank you all for attending. Thank you.